Okay, hello everyone, and a warm welcome to the Authentic You podcast. I am so excited about today's conversation. I've got the lovely Laura Bird here with me, and for those on YouTube, you can see us. So, hi everyone. So Laura is a transformational coach who helps women to step into their femininity, allowing them to be of their highest value. And she does this through mentoring women daily and healing anything in their childhood or past lives that has stopped them from healing womanhood. And I'm just going to add to that as well, Laura. I don't know if you know how I found you initially. I was having a conversation with a friend, and I was going through, this was about 2 to 3 years ago. I was going through what I later found out was a trauma bond relationship at the time. And she said, check out Laura's videos. And you did a video explaining our wounds, and I think you even drew a diagram and named them like Molly and John or something. I don't remember that one. And it just made so much sense to me, and I was like, I get it. And yours was the first video that I actually watched where I thought, I really get this now and what she's talking about in terms of the energy. So thank you so much, Laura, for your support on my journey. And that was how I found you. And then we were chatting, and then I just love your work, Laura, on the feminine. And then I asked Laura to come and be on the podcast today. So very warm welcome. Is there anything that you would like to add to that, you would like to share, to introduce yourself and tell us a bit about the work that you do?
Well, to be honest, that video that you're referring to, so that video put me on the map when it came to trauma bonds, because I think when I drew it out and drew the people and the energy and the wounds and how they interlink and interconnect, suddenly everyone that was watching just went, oh, that makes sense. And I had so many comments and so many views on that video, and it's always a video that I will refer back to when clients come to me now, like, look at this video and then come back to me, and they always come back going, that makes sense. So I'm glad that you saw that, because I remember doing it, I remember drawing it out, and I'm glad that it helped you. Because that's the reason I drew that diagram, was that's how I see energy of people. That's how I do my work. I look at the wounds, I look at the energy, I look at where there's disconnects and blocks, and we just kind of go into it together to understand it. And once you understand it, the block lifts, and then the body heals itself, your life starts moving forward. So in a sense, the work I do is transformational, but it's sort of from all angles. It is really like your past life, your childhood, and all these different things. And it's even future healing as well. So for those who would understand this concept, not everyone will, but we have memories of the past. We can also have memories of the future, because we have created this life, we've set it out in a certain way. So to me, that's deja vu. So we can literally start manipulating energy in its most positive sense and create the life that we want. So we never have to go without. We can always have everything we want. And that's so powerful. And that's what I want every woman and every man to believe, is that we can literally have the life that we want.
I love that, Laura. And there'll be a lot of quantum queens listening to this who understand how that all works. So yeah, that's fabulous. That's so in alignment with our audience as well. And I totally agree with you. Like, we don't have to suffer. We can really be that highest version of ourselves and just make that choice and heal the past, and, like you say, heal the future as well. So yeah, I love that concept. I love that approach. And I feel there's like some real gems, and I'm sure there will be in this conversation today as well, about how, and this was certainly the stage I was at when I saw that first video, was I was for want of a better word, sort of like hooked into the myths and the spiritual community. And then when you just so nicely described the energy, I was like, oh, I get it. And it's about me working on myself. So yeah, so amazing. So where should we start, Laura? What do you want to delve into first?
Where should we start? Shall we? Well, actually, how about, so you said that you were in a trauma bond. So how long, can I ask how long that went on for? Like, how long did you feel stuck, if I can use that word?
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like you're coaching me now. Yeah, so it went on for like 3 to 4 months, I would say, in the most dramatic sense of it. There was a moment where I made a choice and flipped that whole experience around. But yeah, I would say it was a really intense, like 3 to 4 months in that experience.
That's actually quite quick. So can I share with you the longest I've ever heard a client tell
Yeah.
me?
Yeah.
47 years.
Oh my gosh.
Well, can you imagine? I know it makes
I
me
couldn't go through that.
tears to my eyes
No.
because I mean, and that's, I mean, I've heard all of these different time spans, but 47 was the longest. She'd met him in high school and she was still waiting for him now. So she'd missed her boat to be a mum, to be a wife, really. She'd missed all these opportunities because she believed that that connection was so strong. That's the person she's supposed to be with. Although he sort of moved on and he got married and he had his own kids, his own family, she waited because she kept thinking that he would eventually leave that person, that woman, and come to her. So she'd basically lost her entire life waiting for someone. And that client came to me about 6 years ago, and from what I'm aware of the work that we did, she's not in that trauma bond anymore. But feeling the difference between a trauma bond and an actual connection is so important for women. Because when we're pulled to someone, like a real pull, that's a sign of a wound, an emptiness within ourselves, the wound trying to fill itself in. And it tries to fill itself in through someone with a very similar wounding, or someone that's similar to the person that created the wound in the first place. That's the best way to say it, right? Because if you, for example, the easiest example to think of is someone that, say, for example, has abandonment issues. Maybe the dad wasn't emotionally present, so this woman's growing up thinking that men aren't emotionally available to connect to her like she needs. And so when she meets a man that is unable to connect to her in that way, the wound goes, oh, this is familiar, I know you, oh, it must be love. And then you have it, and people think it's connection, but it's attachment, different. And you'll know over time if it's a connection or an attachment. A connection will build you up, it will elevate you as you move through it, but a attachment will bring you down. You'll look at yourself in 6 months' time and go, I don't recognize me, or I don't feel like myself. So attachments pull you down and connections bring you up. So what you're describing, could you feel like it pulling you down, or like you're losing yourself, right?
I think initially, and this is also the myth that you're getting told, right, in the spiritual community, like, this is an amazing connection and you just need to like wait and they'll come back to you, or you just haven't done enough healing, or yeah, I love that kind of, it did initially, it was like, oh wow, which I think was my wound being activated. It was like, this is different. And then it really dragged me down, it brought me away from my business. But once I healed it, which is exactly this dynamic, is then when I met my soulmate. And so it was literally like, right, you've healed this now, you've chosen yourself, here we go. So yeah, that I love that way of looking at like the two energies. And that's like a sense check, isn't it, for anyone listening who's feeling that and going through that experience. And I, at some stage in that, and I know a lot of people, like, I wasn't ready to hear it. But then like something, so for me, there was a dramatic moment. There was there was some, and like with respect to this person, and I don't want to give too much detail because it's not fair on them, they're going through their own journey, but you know, there was almost a level of like narcissism with it. And there was a moment where I just thought, no, this is enough, I choose myself. And I had to almost go through that pain of like that real intensity of the lows of the trauma bond to go, no, I'm choosing myself. And you know, it's, so what would you say, like that's a great kind of segue into like anyone listening who's like, I've got this connection right now, and may be kind of on that fence of like, I know there's more, I know there's more to life than this. And obviously your client who had 47 years, that's just, gosh, that's I feel like that slapped me in the face. I'm like, oh my gosh. So what would you say to someone who's maybe just a few weeks or months into this and is starting to get these niggles? And maybe we can even post the link to that video in comments as well below the podcast.
So what would I say to them to start moving them forward? Is that what you mean? Like, how do we start?
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many different levels to work with. The first level is 3D realistic. Is this man going to be the man that you want to be, the father of your children? Is this man someone that will take care of you if you got sick tomorrow? You know, is this man going to provide and take care of you in all ways that you need and provide a safe space for you to be completely feminine? Probably not, right? So that's like a realistic 3D level. And then we can go a little bit further in, go a little bit deeper and say, well, you know, should I have to fight to be seen and loved? Should I have to fight to get a text back? Should I be chasing someone that's maybe already in a relationship? Should I be chasing someone, you know, if that man is seeking me out but is married to another woman, is that a good man? Because I see that a lot too. I wouldn't want to be with a man that's cheating on his wife, because that's not a loyal man whatsoever, and I certainly wouldn't want to make him my husband. So then we kind of go a little bit deeper, and then we go further into looking at, well, what do I believe love is? Do I believe love is something I have to fight for? Do I believe that love is supposed to be struggle and difficult? Or do I believe that love should be easy and that two people should be on the same page at the same time and it just works? And it should bring me peace instead of chaos. So you kind of start looking at these different layers. And that's where, you know, like what you were referring to with people saying, well, you haven't done enough inner work yet, which I think is such a dangerous thing to say to a woman. Like, oh, if you're not with that, if you haven't made that man, you know, like you, then it's your fault and there's something in you that's wrong. And I think that's extremely cruel and dangerous to say to anyone, because you're essentially telling a woman that she needs to be better in order to be loved by a narcissistic person who's there to only manipulate and abuse her. That's really, really dangerous. I don't advise anyone listen to that advice.
No.
But I do think that we do have to look internally, because why are we a vibrational match to someone that treats us like that? Because if you're not, if you change the internal, that external is going to change. So if I change me, I'm not a match to that. Like for myself, I am nowhere near a vibrational match to a narcissist. Nowhere near. A narcissist wouldn't even come near me because he knows he couldn't even try. He knows that there's no space for him in my life. But 5 years ago, there absolutely was. I dated a couple of them, you know. So I had to continue to shift and elevate and learn to like who I was and raise my standards for me. And who I didn't sort of go, I want to have this type of man, this type of man, this type of man. But I said, I want to be this type of woman for a man. And I worked on that piece. And when I did that, then I also met my soulmate, my person. So it does work. But I think the first step is accepting that this isn't right. And you would have experienced it. There's that level of resistance, isn't there? It's like, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. And then you get more tired and more burnt out and more depressed. And then you eventually get to your rock bottom. And that's when you have to admit defeat. That this is not something you want to be engaged in. And then I have a lot of empathy for women that are still stuck in that, because they just want to be loved. But they're abandoning themselves in order to make someone love them. And that's not what love is. But that's what they've been taught, and they don't know any better. But that's not what love is. And
everything is energy, right? So it's going to be about that vibrational match. So I know deeply for me now that was showing me, okay, this is a vibrational match. So where do I need to look at that? And I've seen this come up with some of my clients as well recently. Is it's almost like it's this dance that we see with empathy and narcissism as well. So it's like, okay, well, what is this showing me? How am I a vibrational match for this? And a lot of us who are really empathic are like, well, like, I'm not a narcissist. Like, what? Like, how? When we first like understand shadow work, we're like, but how am I a vibrational match for this? And then I realized one day, it just dropped in, it wasn't about parts of me that were like a narcissist. It was parts of me that maybe needed, if you think about like the narcissistic energy being like a 10 out of 10, it was part of me that needed maybe like that 1 or 2 out of 10 ego to actually, so it was like a narcissistic gift that was like, if you were a little bit more like this, that's how you could balance that energy. And when I stepped into, and I had this happen a few times with a few narcissists, when I stepped into that energy, which I know, like I see that in you, Laura, like you're so firm with your boundaries and that like fiercely powerful feminine, like the narcissist left my life. And I'm hearing the same in you there.
Yeah, because the boundaries, I mean, for me, for my personality, I go one way and then I go the other way, and then I find my space in the middle. So I had to learn to be like, boundaries, and say no and be really forceful. And I'd already been the other side where I had none, and then I found my space. And now it's just who I am. Like you say, I don't see what you see, but I feel it. So I'm assuming we're talking about the same thing, because I can't see me, but you can. So yeah, it's just, I carry it within me. Like there's a boundary there. And so people don't tend to cross that boundary. It's very, very rare. Because I carry the boundary internally, so I don't need to speak it. But yeah, because I carry that, there's no narcissistic man that would look at me and go, oh, she's someone I'm going to try and pursue. It's just not even, they wouldn't even see me. I wouldn't even be on their radar. But I mean, yeah, 5 years ago, I absolutely was. But you know, that feeling of the trauma bond where it's very euphoric and then it crashes. That was my nervous system, Gemma. So I was like, my natural state of being is euphoria and then crash, euphoria and then crash, because that's how I was raised, in a state of stress and then tiredness. And so the narcissist for me matched that, the euphoria, like, I love you, I can't wait to see you, I can't, you know, you're just amazing. And then suddenly nothing, the crash. So my nervous system these days is extremely peaceful. I'm just at peace. I'm very, very calm. I've worked for many years to get myself to that place. And so now the relationship I'm in is easy, peaceful, and steady, because it matches my nervous system. So there is, I think, maybe some work to do around the nervous system as well, if you're still attracting those trauma bonds, because that euphoria thing, people think that's love, and it's not. It's a lust, and that's a big sign of the trauma bond.
I would definitely echo that with the nervous system. Like you say, it is that familiarity with the chaos, isn't it? And I think, like, and until we name that, we don't always know that that's what it is. So yeah, for anyone listening, you know, if that resonates, I mean, I'm sure, like, we can come on to this, like, you know, I do things like breath work and somatic releasing from the body has kind of helped me with nervous system. Do you have any nervous system tools that you've used, Laura, that you could share with the audience too?
Yeah, I do breath work as well. I try and do it in the morning and in the evening, just sort of 15 minutes in the morning, 15 in the evening. I do like a flow of fast, deep breathing for about a minute. And then I'll breathe in, hold my breath for a minute. And then I'll breathe out, hold my breath for maybe 10 seconds, and then start again. And I do that about 3 times. By the time I'm done, I feel very calm. Especially if I do it before bed, I'll just fall asleep because I feel like someone's touched me in, and I'm safe and I'm happy and I'm fine. So that's been a really big thing. And then also slowing down, because I used to live in a very masculine way. Like I used to live, you know, rush, go, gotta do all these things, and it was making my body sick, it's making my mind sicker, and my life wasn't going anywhere because I'm not in my natural feminine state. So I literally made myself slow down. Like I forced myself, like, stop. I gave myself more time to do things, you know, instead of, okay, get up, get to the gym, be done by 7. It was like, look, you don't have to be at the gym until 7 because you haven't got a client until 12. Where's the hurry? You know, but it was all me feeling like I'm not valuable unless I'm rushing and getting things done. So that also made me more feminine, made me more relaxed, and it calmed my nervous system down. Slow down.
Anyone listening that resonates, please just slow down. That resonates so much with my journey as well, Laura. I had a 15-year career in financial services. I was so in my masculine, so it's been really deconditioning from that, and actually bringing in the masculine to support my feminine as well. So let's come into that. Let's go into, so we've talked about, you know, the past and the trauma bonds. Let's talk about that embodied space you're in now, Laura, and really being in our feminine. What does that mean to you?
To me, being in my feminine is me being in my natural state of being. Me really, like, when I stepped into my feminine, I felt like I finally knew who I was. Literally for the first time in my life, I got to know who I was, and I was surprised. I was nothing like what I thought. I wasn't as loud, as much quieter. I didn't have as many opinions. I was a better listener. Much better supporter. So all these things, I was like, oh, I like me. This is nice. I like it. I like who I am. But I had to change my environment and obviously be in the right relationship for that to all flourish, because we need a safe environment around us for the feminine to show herself to you. So women say to me, like, how do I find my feminine? And it's not really like that. It's more, how do I provide an environment for myself that feels carefree and safe and completely solid, so that the feminine in me can show herself. And it's a natural thing. So being in this place now has changed my whole life. I don't feel, my body's not sick, I'm well. All my, I teach women about menstrual cycles and how that's your monthly check-in at your health and how you're doing. And my womb is very healthy. I had to go for a smear test last week. No woman likes to go for one of those. But I'm always so proud when they say everything's fine. There's no issues. I'm like, yeah, because I'm in my feminine, and the womb, if there's issues, it's showing us where we've hardened, where we've kind of stiffened, or we've held on to things for too long. The womb's going to tell you that. And it's connected to your nervous system. The womb, so and your vagus nerve, where it runs from your womb to your thyroid, that vagus nerve. When you do your breath work, you're calming all of that down. But your womb and your throat chakra is all connected. It's the same organ. So a lot of women, when they're not in their feminine, their thyroids are all over the place because their womb isn't allowed to flow the way, the femininity isn't flowing through the body. And eventually when you get burnt out, which most women do, your thyroid's going to tell you something's wrong. But it's actually the womb that's the problem. It's the female energy, because there's no woman that gets burnt out in her feminine.
No,
you don't get burnt out in your feminine. You only get burnt out in your masculine. And with men, it's the other way around. They get burnt out when they're always in their emotional state, flowing in their emotional state, and not actually getting up and taking action to pursue the things that they want in life. Then they burn out.
It's making me hot. So I don't know if it's energy or like I'm really hot. I don't know what's going on. Having a hot flash. Yeah, amazing. I breathe into my it's revolution breath work that I do with my clients. I breathe into my womb space, and I really have to like consciously like bring that energy like right down and breathe in and breathe that out. So yeah, amazing. Like I sort of knew the connection, but that's really really helped bring it to life. So yeah, I love what you said there about creating that safe space, and that our feminine, being in our feminine, like we can just be, and when we create that space, she just comes out. And that resonates for me so much, because when I first was going through my divorce and I left my marriage, I was very lucky that I just manifested all these, because it was lockdown and nobody could rent out their holiday homes. I manifested all these holiday homes to live in like for a year. And it was incredible, because I left like this really quite toxic environment and went and lived on my own for the first time ever. And I was living in these beautiful holiday homes, and she just came out. She just had that space, and I didn't have to do anything. Like you say, I mean, I was working on myself. I was doing a lot of shadow work, but she just came out, and I just got into alignment. And I've got like a real fondness with that time of like, because it was lockdown as well, which, I'm very introverted, very sensitive. It was like, this is your time. And I look back so fondly on that time, and the holiday homes, and one of the places I lived was a goat farm, and there was little goats running around outside. So yeah, I love that. And I think for a lot of people listening, a lot of women who have had that, that background of being in their toxic masculine, the pushy, the hustle, the do, like you were saying, with quickly get to the gym. I used to, in my corporate job, I used to go to the gym before work. And then work was so mental and crazy that I, instead of like, I did speak up about it later on, but this was probably about 15 years ago now. I used to just be like, maybe if I walk to work a little bit faster and get to my desk a little bit sooner, then it'll all get done. So I was very much in that, in that state. And I think, for a lot of women hearing that, like, what do you mean? Like, I don't understand, what actions do I need to take? So yeah, there's something with just allowing that space, isn't there? So what would you say in terms of, because I'm feeling there's a sense there with that space, that's like, that is a masculine structure itself, isn't it? Almost like a container for the wild women. So what tips would you give to our listeners about kind of creating that safety, creating that container for them to be in their feminine?
Well, I can only really say from how I did things, because I know that there were certain things that stopped me from feeling safe. So for example, if I'm worried about, can I pay rent? I can't relax. Okay. If I'm worried about like, did I do that? Did I do that? Have I called that person? Have I done it? If I leave things to the last minute, can't relax. If I'm in a relationship with a man that's feminine, I definitely can't relax. So what I started to do over the last couple of years was, first of all, I shifted my business to online courses. So I could help more people and be able to find more time for myself, because I used to do like 5 one-on-ones 5 a day, 5 times a week.
Yeah.
I mean, you can imagine I was very, it's all energy work. I'm looking at everyone's darkest parts. So it's a lot. So I did a lot of stuff for online courses so that I could let people heal in their own time through my courses, and I didn't have to be there as much. So that helped to relax me a little bit. And then all the bills were getting paid through that, creating multi-stream incomes. I get paid from all different places, right? So multi-stream income, never have to worry about whether the bills are paid or not. And then I moved to making sure my house was always tidy. Smallest thing that you think made no difference. If your house is a mess and you have to wash up before you can make a meal, or if there's never any fresh towels on the towel rack when you get out of the bath, things like this, this creates stress. So you need order in the house, making sure everything has a home, making sure everything's clean and ready to go. That made a difference. And making sure I did things when they came in. If someone emailed me and said, Laura, could you get back to me on this? I'm going to reply within the first day or two. I'm going to get it done. Otherwise, the list piles up in my mind of all the things I have to do, and I'm stressed. So just doing these little things that you think really don't make a difference, they make a massive difference. Huge difference. I also made time in the morning for myself. I'd always wake up early, but I'd wake up with enough time to slowly make a cup of tea, to just chill for a bit, relax, and then get to the gym, rather than like, okay, if I get up at like 5:45, I can literally throw my clothes on, grab a banana and get out, get in the car. That's too chaotic. It was just wake up earlier, have more time, have more space, anything to slow down and not have to add to my list of things to do. So it was just kind of getting everything organized. And that is a masculine structure. It's a feeling of being safe. I don't have to worry about anything. I tell you what though, what springs to mind, this is what happened to me when I started doing this, and it might happen to women, so I want to say here, when I got that structure, I was sat down in my living room one evening, and I thought to myself, there's nothing to do. I don't know what to do. So my bills, they're all paid in advance. So there's nothing to pay. All phone calls have been returned, all emails have been responded to, all clients have been taken care of. I didn't know what to do, because my whole life, that was when I realized my whole life has just been filled with things to distract me from who I really am. And the second that the universe offered me a chance to finally now get to know who I was, it's very confusing. I just didn't know what to do. And it scared me, if I'm honest, Gemma. It scared me because I didn't know anyone else. I didn't know any other version of me other than doing. And my value was in doing. So now if I've got nothing to do, I am not valuable. So I had to also shift over time the value in me not being equated to what I'm doing. But just by my, because now I believe, right, that just my mere presence in someone's life, it's enough, because I am enough. And it's taken a while to get to that place. I know that when, in my relationship, he likes to just have my energy in the house. I don't have to do anything. He just likes to know that I'm around. That's it. So same with my friends. Oh, she's here, so it's okay. And my clients, as soon as they, if we're working on one-on-one, it's really common that as soon as my face pops up on their screen, they start crying, because suddenly they think, oh, she's here. I'm okay, and I'm really honored to hold that place for those women, because that's my life purpose, is to serve. So, there is a big shift in things like that, going from doing to being. It's it takes a minute. And for your nervous system to go, okay, so
comes back to that chaos, doesn't it? Like, we're so used to the chaos, and when we have nothing to do and the house is tidy, we're like, oh, what do I do? What do I do now?
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're so used to it, and we build a life through it. And then when there's nothing to do, I mean, we always want there to be nothing to do. I wish I could just have a day off, people say. But as soon as there's nothing to do, you don't know who you are, because you've built your whole persona has been built on what you're doing and how you survive. And now you're surviving. In fact, you're thriving, and there is nothing to do. We have to then build, or at least allow the feminine in us to build a life based on that now. And the person that you were that used to do all those things, she in a way has to die off. We have to let her die. So there's a mourning period. Yeah.
I love how like those simple steps and those simple like little sprinkles of like masculine action that enables our feminine to be. And the other thing I want to pick up on, Laura, was I think there's a real importance, and I mean I am a bit OCD about this because I am a coach myself, and I can't stand people calling themselves coaches when they're not coaching. So there's just a side point to this anyway, but like there's something in that feminine just being, like you say, like just being for someone and holding space for someone that is like 100 times more powerful than any advice giving or mentoring is important obviously, but there's just something so potent about just being and holding space for our clients. And like I do get on my soapbox about coaching because it's such a transformational process when you can step back and allow that client to be empowered and move forward. And that's what I'm hearing and you saying there. So there's almost like a, want of a better word, like we're all of service to the planet better when we're in our feminine, because it creates those transformative shifts in the world. So like I'm feeling there's another layer to this podcast, which is like be in your feminine in your work, because it is just like, that's why we're all here. This is why it's needed to shift the paradigm. So yeah.
Love, I'd never thought of that.
It's just dropped in.
That's beautiful. That makes perfect sense. Yeah. Because for me, doing the work I do, like there was times where I thought, did I give enough to that person? Did I say enough? Did I say the right things? Did I do the right thing? This was, going back sort of years ago. Whereas these days, I know that I can just show up and listen and be there, and it's enough. That's all they need. That's what they wanted. And it's the feminine, it's the essence of the feminine, the presence of the feminine, because I teach that, when you're in a relationship, if we have to receive, because we amplify what a man gives us and we give it back to him twofold. And we do that with everything. So we amplify everything. So the womb is like a cauldron. So we literally take everything that's around us and we transform it when we're in our highest feminine. And that's what we do with our clients. We take what they're giving us, we amplify it, we hand them back something that they can actually work with and they can feel loved by. So I think, that makes sense. Being more feminine, I like that. And I will remember that.
There's almost like another podcast there specifically, isn't there, about feminine, being feminine in our work and the transformative shifts. And it's so much more empowering, well, for everybody, isn't it? It's so much more empowering for like the masculine energies in our lives as well, and those around us as well as our clients, for us to step back and hold that space. It's like there's nothing worse than a like chronic fixer, is there? So like actually it's just like a really beautiful energy of power. It's like a really gentle power, isn't it?
It is. It's a very safe environment where you can feel, very connected. I know that a lot of the women that find me, they were missing something in their childhood. They either didn't get the connection they needed or the love they needed. And so just to sit in a space with a feminine woman in that energy, I think that they get what they needed this whole time.
Yeah. I love that. So you said about in your I love you said happy womb, happy woman, and I love that.
100%. Yeah.
So anything else you'd like to add, Laura? Anything else you'd like to share? Anything that's popping into your mind?
What a lot of the stuff that I'm teaching at the moment is about getting yourself to a state of being valuable as a woman, valuable for yourself, valuable for the world. And that does go with being in your feminine. And I think that it's important. I know it's important for me, and I'm sure it's important for you because you're a coach. So to be of service to people, to be giving and loving to people. So I know that there's a lot of women that are missing things in their life, and I understand how that feels. My ear is ringing as I'm saying that. So okay, there's a lot of women feeling like there's an emptiness, feeling like they're in the void, and maybe feeling alone. And I know very much what that feels like. And I think when we learn to look after each other and love each other and give to each other, it then starts filling in some of those blank spaces, because it's really easy to feel lost in the world and be seeking something. You know something's missing, I'm going to seek it. Once you know what it's missing, if you find a way to give it to people, you will receive it back. You know, if I made a decision years ago, like, okay, I want to feel more love in my life. And so I decided to just put even more love into my clients, even more love into my friends and my relationships. And in return, I was loved by the people that were able to love me at the capacity I wanted to be loved at. Some people will fall away because they can't reach that level, and that's okay. But, you know, if I ever needed something, I just found a way to give it and put it into the atmosphere of the universe, because everything comes back to us. We're magnets and we have that power. I would say to women, because this was my story many years ago, I found power, and I put power in quotes, I found power through powerlessness. So where I was the victim in my life, I felt powerful because that was my natural state of being. I've been taught to be a victim by my upbringing. That's just what I saw, so I just mimicked it. And so a lot of women I see, they are powerless, but they're finding a way to make it feel powerful. And that's really more about a control thing. It's like, well, you know, women that come to me and go, well, you know, I don't need a man, I don't want a man. You know, I've been cheated on and I've had 4 divorces and I've this and this and this. And it's very much a victim story. And so they've shut a part of themselves off to divine love. I believe everyone should be in a relationship. It's very important. In fact, it's pivotal that every woman finds a man that is right for them, that's good for them, because otherwise there's only so far they can go. And it's the same with the men. So, you know, stuff like that, finding that powerlessness, we have to look at that. That's one of the biggest blocks that I see when it comes to finding your abundance and stepping into your feminine. If you're a victim of your life, you'll continue to be a victim of your life. And no matter what blessings the universe brings you, you'll make yourself a victim some way or somehow. So I can say that confidently because that used to be my story. My mum was very much the victim, bless her, like that's her story. So I copied it until one day I realized it was probably going to kill me in the end, because my life was never going to go where I wanted it to go. And I realized how powerful I felt when I found a reason to be a victim. So when I shifted that and said, I can't live like that, it was difficult. I'd be like, okay, look for a positive thing. And I really had to pull it to the other side. But when I did that, I realized that there are no issues. And again, it was that same place of like, well, there's no issues. So now what? My body is healthy. I am well. I have everything I need. I'm financially well. I'm in love. What else is there? Like, I have everything I need now. So again, we get to that place and we go, I don't recognize myself without a problem or without an illness. But this is really just how our resistance shows up. If you're not following your life purpose, the body gets sick. It really does. So finding a way to shift out of that victim mentality. We don't have to be constantly in an issue, in a problem. Even when we start healing, we look for issues to heal, don't we? What's the next thing to heal? You know, and that might be a phase for a while, because karmically we have a lot to clear, but they should get to a point where we just go, now everything is transformed with love and from love, and that's all I need. So it's working your way up those levels. So I don't know who needed to hear that, but I'm hoping someone somewhere will go, yeah, I see that. I see where I can be powerless or victim, you know, have that victim mentality. That will block you every time from your abundance and from loving people and from being loved.
Yeah, there's so much energy in being a victim, isn't there? And it's just
Yes,
so like
definitely.
you can turn that energy around. And I know for myself and in my own, I kind of had this reflection that I was putting, like I was in the past, I was going into my own drama triangle. So I was going, oh, I'm being persecuted. Oh, let me rescue myself. Oh, I've rescued myself again because no one else does. Around the circle. And actually, which comes back to the masculine feminine energy with if I had a better boundary in place, then I wouldn't feel persecuted, therefore I wouldn't go into victim, therefore I wouldn't need to rescue myself. And yeah, there's just so much, and it was so much energy I was wasting going round and round my own triangle, because similar to you, I'd learnt that growing up. I'd rebelled against it. But instead of doing that in a really healthy way, I'd instead decided that I was going to rescue myself. So, which actually, like, and then I'd go back around the circle again, or not circles, triangle, to get my shapes right. But yeah, there's so much energy in, like you say, women getting their power from victim. And it's like just like streamlining that energy and that power into empowerment and boundaries, and helping the masculine come in and support that fiercely feminine, powerful place.
Yes. Yeah, we definitely need relationships. I think if because that, I know that I can say that when I met my soulmate, I finally met myself fully, because he provided such a safe place. The only thing that was ever going to happen was that all of my feminine was going to come out, and in turn all of his masculine. So we need each other. This whole strong independent woman thing that's being sold to us.
Can we touch on that a bit, Laura? Because I was curious about that, because I've seen some of the comments on your social media. Like there's been some fierce opposition to like women being in their feminine. Like, are you happy to touch on a bit of that? I can see some debate happening in your comment section, so I was quite curious.
Yeah, debate's a kind word. Gosh, there's some really cruel hurt women out there. Yeah, so when I talk about stuff like that, my audience tends to get divided between women such as yourself that understand what I'm saying and kind of go, yeah, I get where you're coming from, and then other women that will attack it. The women that attack it, you can see how hurt they've been. They have every right to feel that way, in the sense that they have been hurt. They've been abused many times. They've been used many times, and maybe they've been cheated on, or just, you know, been connected to some really poor men. We've all been connected to those men. We've already talked about our trauma bonds, so we've been through it too. The difference is that we healed it and we made room for a real divine connection. They haven't got to that space yet. So the thing is, what I've noticed is that when I speak about this, it's normally the feminists, the modern feminists, that reject it, because they want to be, they think masculine is feminine, and therefore real femininity is toxic. Did I word that right? So, yeah. Right. So it's a bit of a threat to them. When I show up, I've noticed when I show up in my state of femininity, it tends to be a bit of a threat, because the divine feminine in them has been so suppressed that my femininity is a bit of a threat. It kind of, because what I'm doing is that by showing up in my femininity, I'm kind of magnetized to your femininity. But in order to get to your femininity, I have to go through all the hallways of your pain. Yeah. And so when I show up in mine, I'm not allowing you to show up in yours, but I am knocking on the door of the first level of pain that you have to deal with. Yeah. So I try not to take it personally when these comments come through. I must give credit to my man, because he's the one that keeps me supported and going and continuing to say it, because I couldn't do it on my own. I knew that. But I'm knocking on these doors, and women will either go, okay, wow, that does make sense. Maybe I'll look at that. A lot of women go, no, how dare you, F this, F that, you know, very masculine approach to life, fighting, defending, and I'll block Laura, or I'll unfollow Laura, or even I'm going to stop being Laura's friend, because I've lost friends over this too, so that I don't have to go through that first door. So I do try not to take it personally, but I am a very sensitive woman. So, you know, considering that I'm trying to bring women into a state of power, it's always a little bit off-putting when women don't receive it well. But it is those levels of pain that they're not ready to deal with yet. And they kind of avoid anyone that's showing them that who's knocking on that door. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, Laura, and thank you for being you and continuing to do this work, because it's so important. And this is an exact example of that energetic alignment that we were talking about. because if somebody would just saw it and was neutral and was like, meh, not for me, that's different to fiercely coming on the attack, which is so just suggestive that there's a wound there, that there's, you know, a vibrational match in some way. And like you say, you're mirroring back that feminine part of them, but there's so much like trauma and layers around it. So yeah, also I guess, like, let's just, you know, for anyone listening, if anyone's triggered by this, you know, reach out to us. There's obviously some work to be done. So yeah, I applaud you, Laura, on your bravery for continuing to show up for the feminine and leading the way for us all, because as we've just channeled through this process of talking, that it is needed in the world, and that is what the new paradigm is all about, because the planet is shifted into a more feminine place, and that is why we are here. So this is making me really tingly, so thank you so much, Laura, for leading the way with this work. It's really inspiring.
Thank you for having me on. I love having conversations with women such as yourself, because, you know, the opposition that we're talking about, when I meet women that kind of go, yeah, I get it, I've done my healing work, and so this is where I'm at, I just want to dive into those conversations because I'm so grateful for them. Because, you know, these conversations aren't everywhere in the world, and there are lots of women that don't get it just yet, and hopefully they will. But when I do meet someone like you that can actually hold space for these conversations, it's always welcomed. You know, like, I'm always very grateful because I want to be able to have these chats and get my ideas off my chest and listen to what you have to say and see what that creates. So I'm always really grateful. So thank you for having me on.
So welcome. So we've come to the end of the podcast, but there's just one more thing I want to ask Laura, which I ask all of my guests, which can be hard to nail this down to one thing. If you were to give one tip to our listeners to being your most authentic self, what would you say?
I would say that you have to first accept your own authentic self. You have to, if you want to show up in the world as you, not only do you have to accept you, but you have to be proud of you. I know there was things like growing up that I just thought, I'm really different. I would imagine you had the same, right? I'm a bit different. I don't want to go to the clubs. I don't want to go and sleep with random men, and I don't want to go and party and take drugs, and I just didn't want to do any of those things. I just wanted to be in my room reading my book. and so I was always a bit embarrassed that I didn't fit into the normal, you know, society standards. And it wasn't until I got older that I realized what great qualities I had as a woman, that I wasn't doing those things. So not only did I accept that I'm just not like that, I'm now proud I don't do those things, because the women doing those things, they're all in trouble in a way, you know, they're all quite, you know, going through their own shadow stuff, and it's not who I am. So be proud, like shift it to being proud and show up being proud, and people that want to hear you will meet you where you're at. If they can't meet you there, they'll drop off, and that's okay. You want to create space anyway for people that really let you be your true authentic self.
I love that answer. Thank you, Laura. And I cannot echo that enough. Like, that's so true. When you just embrace who you are, those that are not in alignment fall away. And then all these incredible new soul tribe people come in and you're like, oh, I'm like you. And oh yeah. So yeah, it totally works. And for those like listening who are like, oh, I'm in that space right now where like everything's falling away, just trust that process, because, you know, it sounds like we've both been through that. So just, yeah, embrace who you are and your quirkiness, and, you know, just, yeah, I love that. So thank you, Laura. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. We'll leave that there for today. How can we reach out to you, and is there anything else you'd like to share with the listeners now we are at the end of the podcast?
So you can, well, on my socials, everything is under Laura Bird Academy. My website is thelaurabirdacademy.com. So if anyone wants to join like my womb workshops, my womb courses, my divine feminine, I do online divine feminine courses. I do healing the witch wound. That's a big one for women. That's part of my course. They can find everything there. If they want to talk to me one-on-one, they can find me there. So I would just say head over to the website. All my socials are linked anyway. And just as a reminder to women before we finish, that they are loved. I really need women to understand this, that they are loved and that it's going to be okay, because I know life can get really tough and you can feel so alone. I know what that feels like. I've been alone most of my life. Karma is coming back now and everything's good. Eventually everything comes back to us, right? But if you're alone in the world, or if you feel different, or if you feel invisible or unseen, it might just be something in yourself that if you look at it and process it and heal it, suddenly everyone's going to see you, you're going to see you, you're going to feel loved, you're going to feel worthy, you're going to feel valuable. But it all starts with you taking ownership of your life and looking at it. Everyone needs a healer. Right.
Amazing. What an amazing way to end. Thank you so much, Laura.
Thank you,
It's been
Gemma.
amazing having you here.
Thank you.